Hello, good evening, and welcome to a Gooner Ramble podcast. I'm your host Jasper, and with me tonight is regular Clive.
Hello.
And
can't wait. Stuck into this one.
Yeah, I bet. And regular James.
Yeah, hello.
We just loosened the noose around our necks enough so that we can actually talk, and we're going to drag ourselves through this podcast, painful as it is. We've just lost to Chelsea in almost a repeat of the other game where, yes, of course, somebody gets fucking sent off. And it's just incredibly frustrating because we all know deep down that we are good enough to beat Chelsea 11v11. We are good enough. And we were good enough earlier on in the season, and we're good enough now, especially when they're not playing well and they're down in 14th. We are definitely good enough. And we didn't start the game well, even 11v11, but, you know, we have the belief and we have the quality and we have the players to beat Chelsea. And once again, that chance to prove that was taken away from us by that diving twat Costa. Now, we'll go into whether it's a sending off or not later. I mean, it was, but the point is Costa again, and it's 10 men again. And so, you know, once again, we don't have the opportunity to prove that we're a good enough team to beat Chelsea. The Chelsea hoodoo goes on, and it's just so boring and depressing, and I hate it. And, you know, you got Costa coming to the Emirates, you got Fabregas coming there, you got all these wankers coming there, and I just would have loved to fucking put one past them, you know. But to have the game taken away from us like that by a stupid tackle, drives me absolutely insane. Anyway, rant over. Let's try and apply some sense and logic to this, pick over the bones of it, and see what went wrong. Starting with the lineup, obviously it was pretty similar to what it has been. The only noteworthy things are, of course, that Joel Campbell kept his place, even though Sanchez was back. You know, Sanchez is fully fit but not match sharp, which is probably why he didn't come on. He didn't start the game. So it's not a massive surprise, but that was the only thing where we wondered. We wondered whether Sanchez would come on and someone else would come off and Sanchez would start over somebody else, but that didn't happen. Obviously, we got Ozil back from that very slight knock, but otherwise I don't think there's too much to discuss with the lineup. What do you reckon, James?
Yeah, the lineup picked itself for me. Obviously, I did my predictions. I thought, do you know what? After the podcast I did about El Nene, I thought the guy sold him so well to me that I thought throw him in, give him a baptism of fire then. So let's see what he can do. Because Flamini, I thought the last couple of games has been really poor and off the boil. And another one that I was going to do as well was I throw Sanchez in there because at the moment for me as well, I just, by all means, Theo Walcott. You know, great 10 years, you know, all right, he's admitted he could have won more. He's admitted he could have done more. A load of people are talking about Theo Walcott all over Twitter at the moment, so I guess we'll probably get more into that later. But I'd have dropped Theo and put Sanchez in. I think, for me at the moment, Theo Walcott is not delivering on the promise and everything else that he showed at the start of the year. And then there was some people that wanted Gabriel in just to, you know, get back after he was wrongfully sent off in the first game.
That's I can understand thinking behind that. Clive, is anything that stood out to you?
I'm so depressed, right? So, well, actually, I didn't agree with the side, and I also had a chat with Mark King and Kenny Ken before the game, right? And we were saying, well, I was saying I fancy Gabriel to play, and the reason why I think Chelsea are lacking confidence. I don't think their game shape is great. Last year they had basically two combinations. They used to go early from Fabregas to Costa, or they used to go Fabregas, pop in Hazard if he got closer to him with combinations, right? So it was always down the other team's right channel that they focused on. And I just kept looking at Mertesacker and I kept thinking, you know what? Chelsea are not going to build through the thirds, not with Mikel and Matic. They're going to try to drive or go long early and isolate Mertesacker when Bellerin's high on the pitch. And I did say Gabriel should play. And everyone was saying to me, oh no, but we need the calmness of Mertesacker. We need his leadership. I look at football in a different way, right? I look at football and I say, one of the big things in football is you should be able to run. Simple as that. And another team looks at you, when they look at you, what they're looking for is weakness. Any sign of weakness. So then they'll put a game plan to that weakness. Well, actually, Chelsea's game plan is already defined. They haven't really got much of a game plan. But they do play for moments and set pieces, but they do play for the early ball, isolating round the back, especially when CostUs on form, which he has found some form recently. I just thought if we'd have played a faster back line, we would have discouraged that game plan because Costa cannot run Gabriel and Koscielny. And what happens when you don't have quick centre-backs against Costa? What Koscielny is forced to do is what I call 1.5 jobs. And if he doesn't quite cover around, that's what happens. They tend to score. I'm not saying nothing new here. We've all seen this, right? And I'm sure we're going to get to the goal, but I'm not being clever. I wanted Gabriel to start because I think it discourages Chelsea from a big part of their game plan. And as we saw, it turned out exactly as we thought when Mertesacker got isolated, but I'm sure we'll come on to that.
Clive the soothsayer. Right. Yeah, we will talk about Mertesacker in more detail, obviously, but if we just start with the first half, I mean, we didn't have a great start. It was a bit too open. We didn't have much of a midfield. But, you know, before all that, Joel Campbell had a chance in the second minute to actually score, and he wasted that. He sort of swung at it a bit. That would have been a brilliant start. And then seconds later, Koscielny passes the ball straight to Oscar, who has a shot saved by Cech. And then, we create another chance 10 minutes later. Flamini scuffs it. And then Willian comes back. It's really a bit too end-to-end. Willian comes back. He's got a double chance. He has 2 shots on goal, both of which are saved. What did you make? I mean, it's almost like we can split this. What did you make of the game before the sending off? Because that was the only bit we can look at as a proper 11v11 contest, James.
Yeah, it was just a bit like the other year, when we drew 0-0 at home. We had a few of these chances and we just didn't take them, we just didn't take them, and it was so frustrating that day. Just a bit like today. And Joel Campbell's chance, I thought a great little bit of interplay there, and it was using Walcott behind Ivanovic, which was at the time was clever because Ivanovic this season is really off the boil. And we talk about Mertesacker being slow. Ivanovic has barely got that much pace in him as well, and I thought that's who we need to exploit ourselves. Clive, you talk about going down the right channel. I thought that's the guy for us that we need to be tearing up. And then Flamini, for me recently, why is he that furthest player forward? I don't understand. Where is his discipline? He's meant to be that central defensive midfielder, and Ramsey does it as well. So both of them are there, and it's so silly. I don't know where his head goes, and I've got all the time in the world for Flamini. When he come back, he did exactly what we needed at the time. He loves Arsenal, and I'm always grateful for his service and everything else. But his head's completely gone at the moment. He thinks he's a forward. He thinks he's a cam. Where he's meant to be, he never is. It just baffles me.
Yeah. He does. He thinks he's doing the Lampard thing, isn't he? Making late runs, but I don't remember Coquelin washing up in the opposition penalty box, especially not 4 times a game, which I think Flamini did today. I mean, he just was always in there. And I realise when you're down to 10 men, you're taking off a striker. Someone's got to run into the box, but still, it shouldn't have been him. Anyway, Clive, what did you make of that first 15 or so minutes?
Yeah, I'm going to sound boring, right? But it's basketball again, isn't it? Yeah, you have a shot, we have a shot. Simple. Now that to me isn't football. And people say to me, "Oh, well, yeah, but Ramsey's run the furthest. He's made the most tackles." And no, you're picked to play centre midfield. You're picked to control the middle third of the pitch, and we're not showing any sort of tactical positional discipline, right? So, And it doesn't matter when you're playing Sunderland in the FA Cup. And it doesn't matter when you're playing Bournemouth at home. But it does matter when you're playing Chelsea, right? So for all the fact that they've had a poor season, they're 20 points behind us, wherever it is, they can still play big. And I call it big boy football, right? This is big boy football. When big boys come into town, you have to play properly. You can't just run about and do what you like you're in a playground. You've got to look at your distances. You've got to look at your men. If you go in for tackles early, you've got to make them. You've got to stay at the feet at the right time. You play the referee. You look around you and you assess the game properly and you play properly. You don't charge around pointing, jumping, doing kung fu kicks. It's just, honestly, it's just rubbish. He's playing to the crowd. Everyone goes, oh, I like his passion, and he rolls his sleeves. What a load of crap. Honestly, it is just not football. It's not big boy football. And when you play the big matches, everything's got to be right. Everything's got to be right. You've got to be tight. You've got to be controlled. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to execute. And that's why we are a top 4 club, an elite sporting organisation. You can't mess about. You've got to do things right. And too many times at these big games, we derail. How many big games do you see when Arsenal somehow get down to 10 men? Right? And this is not the first time. It's like, it's incredibly frustrating.
Sorry, just interrupt there. Before we move on to the whole getting down to 10 men thing, I wanted to talk a little bit about Flamini because obviously this game is sort of, there's two halves to it, isn't it? There's the pre-sending off and post-sending off, and we haven't even got into the post-sending off bit. We're, just looking at that first 15 minutes, as you said, basketball football is too open. We haven't got a midfield, but that first 15 minutes can be compared to the last 2 or 3 games. It's not. Yep. It wasn't like a freak 15 minutes, no. And it just sort of dawned on me that the yawning chasm between playing Coquelin and playing Flamini is absolutely massive, and obviously Cazorla plays a part as well because he's more disciplined than Ramsey. But a midfield pairing of Coquelin and Cazorla compared to Ramsey and Flamini is absolutely light years apart. And really, when you look at it, Coquelin's been out for a long time, and for us to have been top of the league for all that time up until today, we've done pretty fucking well. Considering that the Flamini-Ramsey axis doesn't really work, they're both running into the box all the time. We've got away with it. We've got away with basketball football mainly because of Petr Cech, really, and yep. to a lesser extent, Koscielny, but mainly because of Petr Cech. But really, we've got away with it for such a long time. But and then of course we can go back further and say, okay, well, if the manager had bought a clone of Coquelin or somebody similar, you could pull whatever names out you like, but if he bought a proper DM that has the same attitude as Coquelin and doesn't really want to attack, then we wouldn't have missed Coquelin. But we have missed him, and we have dropped points, and we have been playing basketball football, which takes us back to the bad old days of a few.
What I will say, just quickly, is if we're going to persist with Flamini and Ramsey, which I hope we don't, they need to have a word with Bellerin and Monreal. The other year, both of them, or whoever the right back was at the time, Sagna, whoever, they both go forward together, and how many times did we get done? And then eventually Monreal would go, right, if I go, you stay. If you want to go, Bellerin lad, I'll stay. That is what needs to happen with Ramsey, because they both just go. And it's like, like I said earlier, what are you doing? Why do they both overcommit? Sometimes they're the furthest player forward. It just doesn't make no sense. I mean, not that, all right, Flamini scored a wonder goal against Newcastle years ago. He scored 2 great goals against Spurs. He scored a goal against, City or someone the other season. All right, he might have a goal in his locker every here and now and then, but he's not an elite finisher. He proved it today, 4 chances, and he should have at least converted 2, for me.
You're right, and going back to what you said about Sagna, the number of times we used to watch him desperately running back towards his own goal, never going to make it, never going to get there, and someone from I don't know, West Brom scores an easy goal. A number of times we've seen that. But, yeah, I mean, going back to Flamini, I mean, we almost would have been better off if he missed those goals against Spurs and you put them in row Z and we lost the game because, you know, since scoring those, he obviously thinks he's fucking Pele or something, you know, and he's getting in the box all the time thinking he's, you know, Ian Wright and he's a fox in the box, you know, and he missed about 4 chances today, you know, a couple of which were pretty damn easy, and it shouldn't have been him on the end of those. But, you know, then we have another argument of should we have taken off Giroud, and we're going to get to that, don't worry. But yeah, he just shouldn't be in there. And Coquelin was never in the box. You know, the furthest forward he ever got was 25 yards behind the box, and that was his attitude. I'm not here to score goals. I'm just here to protect the back four. And
that's the thing. He had his mentality change because when he first started to come in, he thought he was a bit of a champagne player. He used to pop a shot here, he used to pop a shot there. But then eventually, when it was last chance saloon and everything else, the discipline and the change of character in the boy. And that's what needs to happen. And, you know, I'm sick of nearly every podcast I slating off Aaron Ramsey, but it needs to happen with him as well. I'm like, Cazorla, all right, his goal return this season hasn't been great, but he balanced it out last year. He still put a few goals in, and he still put all the tackles in as well, and that's what Ramsey needs to learn. I'm like, if you want to play centre mid instead of on the right, you need to learn. You can't keep doing what you're doing because, like Clive said earlier, in this big boy football, we're just going to get embarrassed and tonked by teams again.
And Ramsey as well, on a slightly different point, drove me absolutely mental today because he had one of those games, didn't he, where he tried all the flicks and tricks. None of them came off.
Was pathetic.
Drove me insane.
I could see kids across the park, across the road, play better final ball than that. It was absolutely. It looked like he'd never kicked a football before in his life.
But it's not
embarrassing.
For me, you know, the final ball was bad. But it wasn't even so much that, you know, he'd just be in a very basic passing move in the middle of the park, no danger. Someone passes him the ball, he's got time to take a touch, then pass. But you think, no, I'll one touch it. That'll really throw the defender off, you know. And the one touch doesn't come off. He just passes to a Chelsea player. Just think, you had fucking time to take a touch and do it properly. It reminds me of that time, I don't know whether it was years ago, when Ramsey was having a problem and someone asked the boss about him and Wenger said, I just told him to go back to basics. But, you know, can you fucking tell him that again? Because he's still trying to play these flicks and tricks. And, you know, okay, you're 3-0 up against West Brom. You can flick your life away. I don't give a shit. But, you know, in a serious game, just make sure the passes find a player. And the stats at the end of the game, Sky said that we had an 83% pass success rate against theirs was 86 or 88 or something, and that's not normally us. You know, we normally, you know, one of the best passing teams in the league, and we find each other. But it was so sloppy at times, and a lot of that was down to him. So he drove me mental.
Ask Clive about Ramsey. That's his favourite subject at the moment.
Well, I've listened to you two ranting away, right? So let me tell you why this is the way it is. Right? So it's very, very simple, right? So when you play at the top level, a big part of your game is about distances, right? So and what I've been saying for quite a while now is that our distances are wrong in centre midfield, right? So it's never about one player, it's about the distance that you have to cover. So everyone goes to me, oh, well, Ramsey's really good in centre midfield. Look how many shots he had. Look how many things he... No. I look at him and I think, okay, where is your partner? He's 50 yards away from you. Why is that? Is that because you're just running where you like? Is that because you're not respecting your position? Or is that because what happens under stressful moments? I've said it before, under stress, when we feel people go into what they call their base game, their DNA game. And under stress, Ramsey's base game is to break and to run harder. Under defensive stress, Flamini's game is to drop deeper and confuse his centre-backs. Right? So the two together creates distance. That's what good teams will do. They will play in those green spaces. I've said it before, play the other pods back. It's nothing new, right? Nothing to do with the fullbacks. Nothing at all to do with them. It's to do with how we control the middle of the pitch. And the good thing, and people were arguing about who's the best, who's that. Just look at the results, right? I read a blog yesterday from Gunner's Town, and the guy brought out something really, really good, because I haven't looked at any stats for today's game because after 20 minutes it wasn't a game, so it's no point looking at the stats, right? So, but Coquelin, first 6 away games, he played in 4, we won 4. He came off in 2 injured, West Brom and Chelsea, we lost them both. It just tells you about our solidity in big moments, right? That guy is critical to how we play. But you have to work out what he's actually doing. And his big trick is he's almost counter-punch tackling. And it's quite interesting today on the Chelsea goal. William breaks out from the edge of the box. Ramsey tries to make the tackle, misses the tackle. At that point, Flamley should have been engaging. And what he did was he dropped off. And that allowed William to travel. And then once he could travel with his head up with no pressure, he could pick off Bertasaka, who had Costa on his shoulder, isolated, one-on-one, green space in behind. Now that's the sort of stuff. They're the small details, right? Coquelin would make that tackle, bang, and we're going back into their box. And that's the difference. He's not about holding midfield. It's about game management of the middle third. And that's what we're missing. What we're seeing is spectacular play, but we're not controlling or managing the game. And against the big boys, it will cost you. And it's not Bournemouth. This is Chelsea. This is Willian. And he can run away from you and pick a pass at speed. That's what happened. So when you sit down and breathe and calm yourself down, this has been coming a while. You can play all the pods back. Distances, tactical control. You are picked to control the middle third. And for the moment, Cazorla and Coquelin have come out. There's not been very many games where we have controlled them. Our shots we've conceded have gone up hugely, and you're absolutely right, Jasper. Peter Cech has masked it. He's player of the season nearly, but he's making too many saves. You know, look at the numbers. The numbers are extraordinarily different since Coquelin and Cazorla have come out. And Cazorla is not your monster Wanyama, but what he does brilliantly is manage his distances and then manage the ball. Very, very simple, right? And that's the smartness of playing in centre midfield. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't think our two centre midfielders are anywhere near our best two centre midfield players. And it's costing us now. But I don't want to be massively critical today, because I've said this for a while, even in games that we've won. You know, the first signs was probably Sunderland in the league game. They had 11 shots on our goal. And we were saying, oh, wasn't Ramsey brilliant? I'm thinking, no, they've had 11 shots. Your job is to make sure we control that middle. And that will catch us out in the end. And it caught us out today.
Yeah, and, you know, while we were talking about the control of the game and what we lack with Coquelin, what do you think if I bring in, you know, slight curveball? What about El Neni? Because, you know, I said earlier we should have bought somebody like Coquelin to back him up in the summer. We didn't, for whatever reason. Now we have bought El Neni, but obviously he hasn't played for a while, has apparently physically fit because he's been training. You know, we sent over one of our fitness trainers, so he's physically fit. He's been training with us since he got here, but he has no match sharpness, presumably. You know, would you have risked him? I mean, you know, his signing was delayed by some paperwork problems. So if he's like a week away from starting for us and making Flamini look ridiculous and consigning him to history, it'll be very annoying, because there was about a week of delays, wasn't there? So if that had gone straight through, could he have started today? I mean, that's just one question mark that I have is, you know, he's obviously going to be better than Flamini. You know, my grandmother would be. He's meant to have like a 92% pass rate. He's meant to be very neat and tidy. He can defend and attack. You know, would it have been too much to his first ever Premier League game to throw him in against Chelsea, or would it have been a risk worth taking? I mean, what do you reckon, James?
Like I said earlier, I would have risked it. I would have risked it because, you know, he's unknown. None of us have really sat there. I'll be honest. Apart from speaking to Oliver about him the other day, I've not watched an FC Basel game. You know, I'm not a Swiss footballing expert, unfortunately. Sorry. So, you know, it's the unknown, isn't it? You know, at least try him. Like I said, Flamini the last couple of games has been piss poor, and you know, throw him in there. He's got to learn to play eventually. I think definitely he'll probably play against Burnley. I think he'll definitely get a run out against Burnley. But you know, if you've got him there, you've got to use him. Like, there's nothing to find out about him on the bench, is there? And also, what this Oliver said to me, every big game he performs in, and on the European stage against Liverpool, apparently that was one of his better games the other year. So, you got to try these things out. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one thing I was.
Why spend the money if you're not going to use it?
Yeah, true. I mean, there's one thing I was going to mention actually is that to all the listeners is that James actually has recorded a special El Neni special where he speaks to a Basel fan, isn't he?
Yes, and he's a researcher for Football Manager as well in Switzerland. So.
That's right. So he's given a very good account of what we can expect from El Neni. So if you haven't listened to that, then check the YouTube account or the Twitter account or any one of our accounts, and you'll see it there. But Clive, would you have risked him, or was it too soon?
No, I wouldn't have risked him. On what basis? Right. So
just being better than Flamini.
We don't know that. We actually don't know that. He signed a 5.5-year contract, and that's his Arsenal career, right? So bringing him in for one game, I don't think it's going to make any difference, right? I think the Burnley game was always going to be his first game, and I don't think Flamley, although he didn't have a great game today, I don't think you can look at this game as a normal game, right? So after 20 minutes, it was a different game again against Chelsea, right? So. My thoughts on Flamley. I don't think the combination with Ramsey is a good one. But I think it's a 50-50 issue. I don't think it's just Flamley's fault. And Flamley's 31, nearly 32 on the autumn of his career. My bigger concern is that Aaron Ramsey's 25 and supposedly the future of our centre midfield, as everyone keeps telling me. And I'm looking and I'm seeing, okay, you can obviously play this game. But the things that I don't think are correct about how centre midfield should be played are just not improving, right? So, and today, the guy that some people wanted to come back to our team ran all around him, and Cesc Fabregas ran that game, right? So, you've got to be holding your head down and thinking, what's happened today? I had my moment to play. I did not play well. I did not control. He wasn't the only one. I'm not going to dig out individuals, but there's a trend here. I always look at trends. Nothing's changing. The distances are still big. Teams are getting in on us. Just like they did 2-3 years ago when the Arteta-Ramsey axis. And for me, the best Arsenal I've seen is when we got the middle three of Cazorla, Coquelin and Ozil. I think roles are defined, distances are tight. Funny enough, we win the big games when them guys are in the team, and maybe we're not so good at winning the big games when they're not.
Fair enough. Right, so we talked about the midfield. Let's try and progress through the game, otherwise we'll be here all night. The next thing that happened after all that stuff was, of course, the sending off. So obviously, like I said, massively frustrating because I would love to play these bastards 11v11, and we can't. We didn't get a chance to prove it. First of all, James, I mean, did you think it was a blatant red card? Is it simply as black and white as that? And why the hell was Per Mertesacker looking the other way when he stuck his leg out?
Right. First of all, that ball is the same sort of Hollywood ball that done us at Chelsea with Costa the other year as well. And like Clive said, 1v1, Mertesacker's never going to win there. And for me, I think you're an experienced, 100-odd caps for Germany. You're a World Cup winner. You've been the captain of this team for quite a while. Let him past. Sheck's there. Would he have beat Sheck one-on-one at the moment? All right, his confidence is a bit better. You just don't know. I would have let him through. Keep it 11-11. If it's 1-0 there, don't worry about it. But he's clipped him. It's minimal, and he screamed and grabbed his knee when he was nowhere near his knee anyway. And we've been done for it. And on Sky they were saying, is it clever? Is it cheeky? No, the bloke's a bastard. He's a panto villain. And he's the worst panto villain since David Hasselhoff as Captain Hook. He's that bad. He's awful. But he's done us again. And that bloke is a mastermind of riling up our team, because I don't know what it is. We just can't cope with him. And it fucking grates my gears.
Yeah, it's a bit like Arsenal versus Costa, isn't it, rather than
Yeah.
Arsenal versus Chelsea. And he only just made it back after an injury. If he didn't make it back, we probably would have ended up 11v11. But anyway, that's another story. I mean, it was very, very minimal contact, wasn't it? And he did 15 pirouettes, a Salco pike tuck, and and it went down like he was being shot. So he's a massive arsehole, but that's what he does. We can't be surprised about that.
No.
We can only be ready for it. But
and he's one of them. If he was in your team, you'd love him for it. So you can't moan.
Well, especially if you were playing like crap and you desperately needed 3 points to get out of the bottom 6, you'd be fucking worshipping him. But anyway, so then we take off Giroud for Gabriel. So Clive, was that the right substitution?
Oh dear. Right. So for me, I was shocked when that went up. That was my first emotion. I was just shocked. And the reason why, I just thought, actually, funny enough, I wanted to take off Flamini. That was what I first thought, because you keep your wide men the same, because you picked them, and you need to keep your sort of wide energy, right? So, and I would have took off a central player, and I would have made Ozil work harder. He hadn't played for a while. He was a little bit, his timing of his passes off today, and but I thought maybe I would have made just him and Ramsey central midfield, just to try to, when we have got the ball, we would keep it a bit more. The thing is with Flamini, when you give him 1.5 jobs, it makes him worse, right? It makes him everywhere but nowhere. So, and with Giroud, I just think he just would have given us some structure. So I'm always looking for structure when we're down to 10. Who can I hit? Can I get up the pitch? Can I get out? Can I get a foul? Can I get a set piece? Set pieces become gold, right? So when we do get wide situations, we were having to turn out because we couldn't just whip the ball into Theo Walcott, and so for me, he's our form player, right? He is our form player right now. I think he was 9 in 9 or 9 in 10. He is the form centre forward, our form scorer, and our top scorer. We're 18 minutes in, and he's come off. And I don't know how people felt in the stadium, but I was aghast, right? I just thought, that's not the right thing to do. And then within a few minutes, they score. Then you think, our centre forward's walking down the tunnel, and we are 1-0 down with 10 men. And it looks even more stupid, right? So I didn't agree with it. I didn't agree with the selection before the game. I said why. I said it all comes back to big boy football. In the big moments, you do something. I remember thinking back to the World Cup. Right? So a little bit on Mertesacker. I'm not blaming him, but I just feel there's room for rotation with our centre backs, and I think we should be doing it more, especially for teams like Chelsea. Right? So I remember the World Cup. I can remember it. Mertesacker. We're watching the Arsenal players in the World Cup, and Germany played USA, Ghana, Portugal, and they played Algeria in the last 16. And then they had to play France. And you know what they thought? They thought, we can't afford to have, Benzema running against Mertesacker. So they dropped him. He got his World Cup winners medal, but he didn't play for the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. I think he came on the last minute in the final. 106 caps, retired. Thank you very much. Come the big moment, you make decisions, right? Come the big moment today, I didn't think Wenger got the decisions right, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, that, wasn't it? And I agree with you, but he's the focal point of our attack, isn't he? And also, we're defending corners. He's useful. He runs a lot of miles. He works hard for the team. So it was a bit of a strange one. The only possible reason that Sky gave for that was that they said he picked up an injury in training or something.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, maybe they were thinking about taking him off after an hour anyway, just as a precaution.
Yeah.
And so maybe they thought, well, look, fuck it, we'll just bring that forward because of what's happened. So I don't know. We can only guess, but
I just think he's one of our sort of leaders, right? So he's a big player. He's a big physical presence. I know I went to the game last season, and the 0-0, and he got well managed by Cahill and Terry. So I'm not saying he has a sort of a history of beating Chelsea up. He doesn't. but he's one of our leaders, right? And our players play to him. So you're taking out another structural column out of the team, right? So we've lost our centre midfield structure. Then you take out your centre forward structure. And I'm thinking, well, what pattern of play are we going to play now? What are we going to do? You know, and I thought our pattern of play was impacted by the substitutions, right? So who are we going to play off? Who are we going to hit from distance? We can't find Theo Walcott in the phone box, right? So that's his game. And suddenly he pops up. So you can't play off him, right? So who are we going to play off? And I just thought our structure went, and we didn't create the same amount of chances. And then when we did, they fell to the wrong man. So I did agree with that. I think sometimes when you go down to 10, and I've played many games with 10 men, right? And what you're looking for, you have to work harder. So that means your decision making is impacted because you're under more fatigue, right? But if you know your man's up front, you ain't got to even think. You know how to hit him. You know where he likes the ball. He can get us at the park. And I just think sometimes we added complexity to our game rather than simplicity, right? And Giroud, whether you love him or hate him, you know how he plays, right? He can do certain things very, very well. And I think we could have done with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think when it hit me most was in that last few minutes when we were desperate for a point, and the ball comes in, and Flamini tries to score with his foot when it should have been a header, and that's a Giroud guaranteed goal all day long. That close to the goalie, I mean, Giroud would never miss from there. And every time a ball comes into the box, there was Flamini and Monreal in there trying to score. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, we have to move on because there's a lot to discuss. Shortly after sending off, of course, was the goal by the mono-browed cunt. 22 minutes that was. Looking at that, I mean, as we've said already, we gave them too much space. Willian had too much space. We didn't close them down quick enough. And one of the things that I noticed about that is when the ball goes out wide, I'm not sure why Nacho doesn't bust it up to get there. He seems to let it roll out. But it wasn't going very fast. And when I watched the replay, I think, why didn't you get there, slide it out of play and kill the danger? But I thought that was 50-50, or at least actually 60-40 in Monreal's favour, unless it's just the angle of the camera, I don't know. But I just was left wondering, why didn't you get rid of that? Anyway, he doesn't, and we all know what happened next. But James, what did you make of that?
Well, first of all, the cross from the other side. Flamini is in the box, and he's pointing and shouting like he normally does, trying to dictate. He ballses up the initial ball that comes from the right side, and then it's a bit of a scramble. It comes out, and Monreal arguably has been Arsenal's best defender this season for me. I think, I praise him every time he needs to be praised, but he needs to be criticised there. He turned his back on it, he didn't close him down. But again, Flamini is in the way, again, and he blocks Koscielny's view. And if you look at Koscielny's eyes after that goal, he's literally staring at Flamini as if to say, thanks, mate. And it's like, why are you trying to do a centre-half's job, Flamini? Get out of the way. When I go to work, if I'm in the stockroom doing delivery, I don't want to see the bloke in the purple Money Maids cleaner's outfit upstairs doing the delivery with me. Same thing is, if he comes in and I'm in a purple Money Maids outfit, he'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? And that's exactly what happened there. It was a just calamity of errors from all of the defending there. And it's like you said, Mertesacker, all right, he's got the leadership, he's got a bit of organisation, but the organisation there was piss poor. And it had to be him, didn't it? It had to be him. You knew it would be him that scored. Absolutely.
Clive?
Yeah, well, it's nothing new. Nothing new. How long have you heard me say this? Right? Under stress, what does Flamini do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Gets in the way.
I'm saying it for months.
Yeah.
I'm saying it for months. Right? So, it's what we've all got these weaknesses when you play or in life. We all go to default behaviours, right? That's what he does. And he rolls his sleeves up and he thinks he's helping people out. Well, actually, you're not, mate. Go out there and control the space in front of the centre-backs. Not between them. And Sky did a great job analysing that. And for those who have not seen it, I'm sure you will if you're stuck in a Tollington now or you're on your way home. Let me tell you, when you see that, you're going to be traumatised, right? It's career ending, but to me, he's done it many, many times, right? And he confuses people. And I think Koscielny would have just cleaned that up if he wasn't distracted by his presence. And the thing is, he's run past 2 people to get involved in a situation where it's literally 3-on-1, and he's managed to make the one person get the goal. The one person we all didn't want to get the goal ends up getting the goal. I'm not gonna labour the point. It's blatantly obvious to me the weaknesses there, and I was hoping there'd be a little bit more rotation with other players. I was hoping that we'd have a bit more of a more calming presence by now, and it hasn't worked out. But Coquelin was only one. He may play against Burnley, you never know, right? So, but you know what? As I said, also Coquelin isn't the only answer to this. This is about distances, and no one player is going to fix it, right? So it's about our shape, our tactical discipline, our positional discipline, and our mental discipline. So we stay at 11 men in big games. We need to change that. It doesn't really matter what name's on this shirt. I've seen games where Firmino's positional play has been brilliant. It's just that I think he's been left a little bit alone, and I think it's a 50-50 thing with his partner, and I think his partner also causes issues for Ozil, who hasn't played well recently, and I'm afraid went back to a year and a half ago's Ozil today, and he looked just like that, and that's a real shame as well. We got to be honest, that's what happened. And it's nothing new for me to say, really. Distances all wrong.
He was a bit too far forward as well, Ozil, at times, and then he had to either pass sideways or sort of run back, and then he'd get clattered anyway.
It's not even been too far forward, right? Because they took off our centre forward, and he ended up almost being a false 9, right? So,
yeah. But
I'm looking at things like his passing accuracy, his demeanour. He found it. He looked a bit distressed today. He looked a little bit within himself, and that body language had gone. He turned into one of our leaders, right? He was talking to people, telling people where to stand. He was driving the team. And he's obviously he was injured before Liverpool. There were signs of it there. He didn't play against Stoke. And I was hoping he was come back refreshed today and really put in a performance. Difficult to judge him, right? Because it's literally over an hour with 10 men. But there were little signs there of him not being very happy. And that's the first time I've seen that for a long time. It's a little bit worrying, to be honest.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't at his best at all. But I think, going back to Flamini, your expression of everywhere but nowhere sums him up perfectly, really. That's kind of his epitaph, and it sums him up very well. He's sort of all over the place, but without actually doing anything, just pointing, shouting, and yeah. Anyway, we spoke about Flamini enough. After that, the rest of the half, we didn't conjure up too much, did we? Theo had a couple of offside shots. Ramsey scuffed one, and then Costa shot at Petr Cech from a narrow angle, which was saved. And then Flamini had a chance as well, and that was pretty much it for that half. Second half, Theo was offside again. Ramsey was overcomplicating everything again. Then we had the incident where Koscielny barges Fabregas over. Probably should have been a penalty. What did you make of that, James?
Yeah, it's a penalty. I sort of laughed at the time, thinking, "Oh, he's got away with that. He's got away with that." It was just straight up shoulder barge, wasn't it? There's no other way to defend it. He just clattered him.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was a shoulder barge. Yeah. So then
he's not even looking for the ball, even when he's doing it. He just straight through the man. So
yeah, that's right. And then Campbell comes off for Sanchez. Like I said, he probably couldn't start because he was lacking in match fitness, but he did change the game as an early substitution for Wenger. Obviously, he normally does something, in the 70th minute, but in this situation, he had no choice. He had to try and do something. So he brings Sanchez on, who immediately makes a difference, drifting past players. We had a goalmouth scramble about 10 minutes after he came on, where everyone was sort of jumping on the ball, trying to get it over the line, but it didn't happen. And then, terribly sad, Costa gets injured and goes off basically around that 70-minute mark, and Remy comes on. What did you make of Sanchez coming on, Clive?
Yeah, he looked a bit lumpy, right? He didn't look match fit, but people are starting to read him off his right foot now. He does a little shake and bake, and he comes inside on his right foot, and he got tackled a couple of times, but he warmed into the game slowly, looking after his hamstrings, and then he got more confident in his body. And
passed the ball out of play twice, didn't he?
yeah, but obviously he's not played since late November, right? So and I actually think, if you're looking for a positive today, I think it's probably him, right? So because his influence on the team was like back to normal immediately. His end product might not have been there, but it's quite interesting. If you look how Chelsea players reacted once he was on the pitch, they didn't look as confident, right? So he had some fear factor with him, right? So I think another week's training and obviously maybe an hour against Burnley, we then go into the real critical period, right? So I think, that's the positive for today. And Arsenal with him in is a different Arsenal, and I just would love to see Sanchez back to the form he was at Leicester away, for example, and Ozil at the form that he showed maybe the peak of Bournemouth at home. If we can get them playing that well together, and then with our structure in centre midfield again, I know it's not all lost. It's 15 games to go, right? It's 45 points out there. It's not all lost, but it hurts right now because we're just repeating the same errors against Chelsea, and we keep derailing mentally and discipline-wise, and we lose the big moments, and then we lose the game, right? And you're looking at it thinking, actually, they're nowhere near as good as us now. In the days of Drogba, Cech, when he was younger, Terry when he was younger, Robin, these are monster players, right? In the peak of their career, Frank Lampard, these are big players, all at 29, all in their peak, physically stronger than us, and they were better than us. We've got to be honest, they were. The last couple of years, that gap's really shut down, but we managed to find a way to lose against these guys, right? And I'm not sure we're learning, and I get conned as well because I thought we'd win easily, and I looked at them athletically, but they're big boys. They're big boys. They turn up for big games, and you've got to be aware of that. You've got to be sharp. I was talking to a couple of mates before the game today, and I used to manage a team, right? A very good Sunday team, and we were very talented in the area I live in, and we got to a County Cup final, and we expected to win it. And this older team, but they were good players in their day, they got 1-0 up, and we couldn't get it back. And we were the best teams in the area. And sometimes you give the older, experienced, big heads something to chew on, they will hold on to it. Right, that's exactly what we do against Chelsea. We give them the first goal, and they are smart enough to win the game from there. And that's what they continually do against us, to be honest.
I think every team that has like a regimented back four like Chelsea, and then they press high, we always seem to struggle against. And I like you've said, it's been for years now, and it's really, really frustrating. I thought Zuma today was incredible. And I rate that kid high. I thought he played really well.
Now, James, you know what, mate? It wasn't even a game we can assess properly. We can assess the moments like Jasper's taking us through, the moments in the game. There isn't a pattern here we can assess and make any conclusions from, apart from the mental frailties that we showed come the big moment. And that's what we've got to cut out. It doesn't happen as often as it used to. It's happened twice this season so far, maybe 3 times. Zagreb, when Giroud imploded, we got Gabriel imploding at Stamford Bridge, and we got Mertesacker unfortunate today, and that's it. 3 big games, local rivals in 2, and then a Champions League game, and we took us a while to recover from that. That's 3 too many, right, already. And when you look ahead, we got 15 games to go. I think we got 8 at home, 7 away. We're going to have to manage these moments better than we are, because they're going to get bigger. These points are huge now. They're going to get bigger. We got big emotional games against Barcelona. It's going to get moments there going to really count. We can't afford to go on the pitch with this flaky demeanour. I'm not sure if Ozil's going to show. Not sure if Walcott's going to show. Not sure if Campbell's going to show. The game looked a bit big for him today. Right? One of our big players is off the pitch after 18 minutes. One of our leaders is sent off after 18 minutes. You know, this is what today's all about. Those moments and us managing them. You know, it's not about the individuals, it's the collective. We know about the Flamini Ramsey thing. That's not new. Everyone knows about that now. I'm reading all the blogs. Everyone's talking about it. We're all smart. We can all see. We're not stupid. We can see the big spaces of green. Right? So we haven't quite managed to get away with 100%. We're 3 points off the top. But you know what, Jasper, you're right. We more or less did get away with it because of the paucity of the league. Right? So hopefully that'll be sorted out soon. I'm not digging out the individuals so much, right? It's nothing new there. Maybe we learned something about Joel Campbell today. I learned something about him. I thought the game was a bit big for him. You know, I learned something about, you know, Mesut Ozil today. I want him to start to mark that one down and say that can't happen again. But I can't judge him because it wasn't a real game after the sending off.
True. The good thing about their goals happened so early. You know, it's like 22 minutes. And so we had time to claw it back, even though we were down to 10 men. You know, in the second half, we were better. We took Theo off about 74 minutes, brought on Oxlade-Chamberlain. We had another goal-mouth scramble, which caught when Courtois dropped the ball. Did you ever think we were going to score, James?
After we fluffed all that when he dropped it, I thought, do you know what, this game could still be played now and we still wouldn't score. After that, I thought we ain't going to get better than that now.
They weren't giving away many chances, were they?
We haven't scored in 8 games against them. Was it 8 or 9 games?
I think it's 9, actually, yeah.
Apart from maybe Community Shield, we obviously scored then. But we just haven't scored.
We had 1 shot on target today.
This is really bad.
Yeah. You think of all the attacking options we had. I know Giroud, alright, he's the main man, he's the top scorer, he got taken off. You know, still had Ozil, Sanchez, Ramsey, Campbell, Walcott. You know, Chamberlain come on, alright, he didn't have the best of times again, sadly. You know, and to have 1 shot on target. It's like I said, you know, that back four of Chelsea's so regimented. And Ivanovic ain't even the player he is at the moment. And Azpilicueta had, what a battle he had with Bellerin today. You know, if you're a neutral and you're watching that, you think, what a great game them two both had, fighting one-on-one with each other. Like the gladiators in the arena. But I just, it just winds me up. It really does wind me up because, you know, like you said, Clive, we're playing a few more of the big boys. And some of them have got big, strong centre-halves and we can't afford to keep bottling it. If you want to win this league, alright. The other week you said how many points. I said I'd be happy with 4. We ended up with 2. We ended up with 2 out of these fixtures. It's not good enough.
Too right. Yeah, I mean, as the game wore on, I thought, okay, we're bringing on the Ox, who've got more attacking intent. You know, Ozil's still there, but I just kept seeing him crossing into the box for Flamini and Monreal. And Flamini kept being the one in Giroud's position, right in the middle of the box. You know, he had that high shot. Like I said, he should have headed it. And then, you know, there was another goal-mouth scramble, and then Flamini had tried to score with a back heel, didn't he? I mean, that just sums it up, really.
We had Koscielny up front near the end as well.
Yeah.
He just got, you know, really got last chance to them.
And he almost scored, didn't he?
Yeah.
Koss, in one of the goal-mouth scrambles, Koss almost scored. He was trying to poke the ball through a crowd of legs. And that would have been typical of him to rescue us, because he always seems to be there when we need rescuing. But, you know, it just wasn't happening. And, you know, but that sort of, watching my telly and seeing, you know, great attacking players like Ozil cross a ball in, and then you've got a left back and a defensive midfielder who's 31 years old. They're the ones that are expected to finish. You know, something's gone seriously wrong. You know, I mean, it was terrible. Anyway.
Well, I think just to tell you why that happened, right? I thought Chelsea were quite smart. So I thought both teams, what they did, they dropped off into their boxes. So they didn't leave after the setting off. We did in the first half, but after the setting off, I felt that we defended deep, and then Chelsea defended deep, which made it more of a sort of a difficult game for Theo Walcott, right? So in hindsight, Giroud was perfect for that game. But would they have done that? Would Chelsea might have pressed up on him and then pressed us back, right? But what they did very cleverly, once we broke out, they dropped into their box. We had periods of real possession around the edge of their box, which you don't normally get with 10 men. That combination playing, normally 10 men, you're trying to break out, trying to break out of the horseshoe stranglehold, right? But we had real possession. I thought that was Chelsea being tactically very smart. They recognised that they were forcing us. They were giving us the outsides and saying, go on then, cross it in. And Zuma, Ivanovic and Terry would just eat that up all day, right? So, and of course we didn't. So we came out, turned out, around the other side, trying to look for little dinks over the top to Flamini. And it just the way the game went, right? So, I do think the sending off was obviously a big moment, but the substitution, I don't know. How big was it? I don't know. Maybe the game would not have panned out that way if we'd have stayed on, but I do think Chelsea were very smart tactically in the way they saw that game out.
Yeah, well, it's something that they've done many, many times, isn't it? Right, we're running out of time. Only got a few minutes left, so let's just whip through a few listeners' questions. I think to an extent we've already answered this one, but we've got a guy called James at JNSYRETT5. He says, do you think this is finally the time for Gabriel to replace Mertesacker at the back? And another guy called One Touch Footy asked pretty much the same question and adds to it, surely he can't start Mertesacker versus Barcelona. So, James, what do you make of that one?
Yeah, love him. Loved him when he come in. Great guy. But yeah, no, it's. I think Gabriel now is he's at the right age. He's the right sort of player. Yeah, it's time now.
Okay. Next question then. Let me just have a look. We got. Do you think it was the right decision to take off Giroud? Well, we've done that one. That was from A1. One from one of our own, Judd. He says, is Costa the biggest cunt in football? Well, I think, again, that question almost answers itself, doesn't it, James?
Yeah. There's a few more I can think of, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a few of them that haven't been paying their taxes recently.
Yeah. I didn't think I'd hate anyone more than Drogba, but he is absolutely a hateful, spiteful little shit, isn't he? Next one from Matthew Harris says, what are your opinions on the captain armband situation early in the match? Clive?
Yeah, I didn't really have an opinion on it. I thought it was quite nice that our nice boy Theo, 10 years of being a millionaire, walks out onto the pitch with the armband. I actually thought he was basically just leading the team out. I didn't realise he had the armband on, right? So I think it was a nice touch for him to sort of lead the team out on his 10th anniversary, whatever it was. But our captain's our captain, right? So I didn't realise he was captain for the day. I think maybe it's a step too far. Doesn't really bother me. Doesn't really bother me at all. Selecting the right team bothers me. Making the right substitution bothers me. Executing in the box bothers me. Not scoring against Chelsea in 9 games bother me a lot more than whether Theo Walcott's the captain or not. And on Gabriel briefly, I think Gabriel has earned some rotation time. People say to me, Mertesacker he's great and they're a great combination with Kajani. I think Gabriel's performances warrant him having a rotation, minimal. I don't think it has to be either or. I think there are times when we need to play him. And I've always said it, play him at home, because that's when we overcommit. We overcommit at home, we get our fullbacks higher, and we need defenders who are happy in wide spaces one-on-one, and that's what Gabriel is. Mertesacker away, like he did at Man City, and the big games away from home, he's brilliant at marshalling a defence that has to sit deep. There's a place for both of them. It doesn't have to be either or. He ain't got to kill one when he makes a mistake. But the manager seems to pick one all the time, and I think he shows some inflexibility there, and I think he needs to show more flexibility. Look at the opposition, look at their game plan, look what they've done to us in recent history, and pick the right players for it. And he messed up today.
Yeah, he's too scared to break up the Costs and Mertesacker partnership, isn't he? Right, last question from Kenny Ken. I think you know him, Clive, don't you?
Yeah.
He says, Will Walcott...
I know him quite well as well.
Yeah, okay, there you go. You both know him.
Yeah.
I don't know him. I don't know who the fucker is. Anyway, he says, will Walcott ever be good enough for Arsenal? So, I'll give you that one, James.
Do you know what? I think that we're a worse side without him in it, even though I would have put him on the bench today. I would have brought him on eventually. And I think he's a good player. And now is the time, this is the time now for his age. But one thing I will say is, speaking to my dad about him earlier, he told to me about Michael Owen. And he said about when he first come in at 18 or whatever years old, he played so many games, and he got injured, and it sort of ruined his career. And my dad said that's the sort of thing with Theo Walcott. He just played too many games too young. Being picked for that England when he barely even made an appearance for Arsenal, that 2006 was it, or whatever.
Yeah, it was.
He got invited on there. I don't even think he played a game, but still, he was in and around the squad and everything. And I hope he stays for a long time, and I think he's still a viable outlet. But there is better than him out there, I'm afraid. But whether we'll get it or not is another story.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to say that Walcott, even when he doesn't score, he stretches defences, causes all kinds of problems, and his pace is always a threat. But when that's not happening, and they're not, the opposite team defenders are not playing a high line, then he's still got to contribute something. He's still got to score goals. He's still got to have assists. He's still got to play a part. So I mean, there's arguments.
He's just getting pelters because he had a shit game today. That's all it is. He'll score an absolute cracker like he did against Man City again, and he'll be a number one. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
We talk about it in nearly every pod about scapegoats and everything. Today it's Ramsey, Walcott, Mertesacker, and Ramsey's day. Next week it'll probably be Shex. You just can't tell. He just flip flops all the time.
That's true. Okay. And the thing about Walcott as well is that he was having that absolutely blinding run just when he got injured at Tottenham, and he walked off and got coined. I mean, that was the end of a fantastic run where he was absolutely blistering, looked like he could finish the season with 25 goals or whatever. If he can get back to that form, then, he's priceless. But he's definitely not there now. But, he's only had a few games back, so maybe in 5 or 6 games time, if he gets back to there, then everyone will shut up and be thankful they got him.
Go on, Clive, I know you're waiting.
Yeah, I just thought when you look at Walcott, don't just look at the individual, right? So he's played the last 9 games or so left midfield, right? So none of us would have said he would have played that many games left midfield at the start of the season. We'd have thought he might have played some on the right, might have played some at centre forward, but left midfield, no way. He's done a lot of tracking back, a lot of work. He actually doesn't look quite as sharp as he normally does, pace-wise. I think he's having to run longer distances and do much more defending. So when he does have the moment to burst forward, I felt he was caught on his heels a lot of times today because I think he was pretty tired. I think Walcott is a 14-touch-a-game player. 4 of those touches lead to a goal or an assist. That's what he's always been. If you're looking for him to run games and have touches in midfield, he's not going to do that. I think our highest level game that I've seen in the last 3 years, Walcott's been in the team. I think we are a different team when him and Sanchez are in the team. But what people forget, it's not just about Sanchez. It's about the transference of the ball through the thirds. And that means it's Cazorla to Ozil. Ozil's playing a no more than 5 to 10 yard pass to slip in Walcott. Then you've got the player that's worth 130 grand a week. Because that's when he's at his best. If you're asking him to be at his best when he's left midfield, or playing on the right with no centre forward like he was today with 10 men, and you're asking him to get on the ball and tackle and dictate, then you're looking at the wrong player, right? So, and maybe it shows another little pointer to our approach in these big games versus Chelsea. I think what you have to do with them is almost have a no drama first half. It's a sort of game that maybe you start with it's hindsight, right? Easy to say. You start with a Callum Chambers, you start with Firmini, you have Ramsey, and you have Ozil. and you have basically, and Ramsey one of the wide positions, and you have people that want to keep the ball, and you just take Chelsea into the last third of the game with the game level, and then they have to do something, right? Because then we'll get in control of the game. There's no moment for them to work off of. There's no disadvantage for them to seek. We've got to approach these big games with a slightly different mentality. With Chelsea, we've done quite well in the big games. But Chelsea, we've got a mental barrier to overcome. I think just the confidence of reaching half-time with them on par would have been quite good. And I think we'd have come out after half-time knowing Sanchez was coming off the bench, knowing we had some extra power off the bench. We had a good bench today. I think it would have been a game we would have won. And that pragmatism we've got to show. We just can't always go out there and just be Arsenal all the time. We've got to say, okay, we've got to barrier these guys. Let's approach the game slightly differently, control it, make sure we don't concede, no drama, nice tight distances, nothing for them to feed off of. And then we question their mentality, their solidarity. Then they look at their boots, look at their season. How have we done? Why are we 22 points behind Arsenal? We start to question themselves. What we did is we encouraged a group of old men, we encouraged them in, and then they took their chance. And now we've got the Sunday night crying ourselves to sleep. Simple as that.
Yeah, because you're right. Because they would love to soak up pressure and sit back, don't they? That would really suit them. And what you want to do is try and get them to come out. So yeah, it's a good point about the game plan. Anyway, we must now go and cry ourselves to sleep, as you said. So thanks for everybody for listening, and thank you to Clive and James.
Thank you.
And please listen to us on YouTube and press the subscribe button. We're on iTunes. We're on everything. On Twitter, we're at Gooner Ramble Pod. Thanks to Rick for doing the editing. And we will be there for the next game, come hell or high water. Let's hope it's high water. Thanks very much and good night.